The moment the motel clerk slid the key across the counter and said there was only one bed left, something fragile inside me cracked open, not with desire, but with fear. Fear of how close we already were. Fear of what had been unspoken for years. Fear of the way one ordinary night could change two careful lives forever. If stories about kindness, second chances, and quiet love matter to you, take a second right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who believes in grace, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps these stories alive. We were stranded in rural Montana, deep in the United States, the kind of place where cell service vanished and the sky felt closer than the ground. The conference in Boise had ended early because of a storm, and our return flight was canceled without apology. Renting a car seemed like the responsible choice, until the highway flooded and we were forced off the road into a town so small it barely had a name. One diner, one gas station, one motel, and us. Matthew Caldwell, a widowed father who learned how to survive by staying guarded, and Hannah Whitaker, my late wife's best friend, the woman who had helped me raise my son without ever asking for anything in return. The motel smelled like old wood and lemon cleaner, and the hallway lights flickered as if even electricity hesitated to commit. When we stepped into the room, the truth stood in the center like a dare. One bed, neatly made, 2 towels, no couch, no escape. Hannah stood near the window, arms folded, calm on the surface the way she always was, while I felt my chest tighten with memories I had no right to revisit. She had been there the night my wife, Rebecca, died. She had held my shaking hands at the hospital. She had stayed after the funeral when everyone else moved on with their lives. That night, as rain drummed against the roof, the silence between us grew heavy. We spoke about safe things at first, about my son Noah and his baseball games, about Hannah's work as a school counselor in Ohio, about how strange it was that life kept going even when parts of it stopped. Underneath every word, though, was the weight of years spent pretending not to feel what we both felt. Loving someone after loss felt like betrayal, even when no one accused us, especially then. I took the floor, laying down a blanket like a boundary I wasn't sure would hold. Hannah insisted it was unnecessary, but I needed the discomfort. It reminded me of the rules I had lived by since Rebecca's death. Be careful, be loyal, do not hope too loudly. Sleep came in pieces, broken by the sound of Hannah's breathing and the ache of what I had denied myself for so long. Somewhere before dawn, I realized the storm outside had softened, but the one inside me had not. Morning arrived pale and quiet. We shared coffee from thin paper cups and laughed at how ridiculous we looked after a sleepless night. The laughter felt like relief, like permission to breathe again. When the road reopened, we packed the car without speaking about the bed, about the almost, about the truth hovering between us. But something had shifted. I felt it in the way Hannah looked at me when she thought I wasn't watching. I felt it in myself, in the courage it took to admit that surviving was no longer enough. Back home in Idaho, life returned to routine. Noah needed help with homework, the lawn needed mowing, the world demanded normalcy. Hannah returned to Ohio, and we slipped back into phone calls and holiday visits, into the safe distance that kept everything intact but unresolved. Yet that night followed me. It followed me when I tucked Noah into bed and stared at the empty side of my own. It followed me when I found Rebecca's old sweater and realized grief had changed shape, not disappeared. Months passed before Hannah visited again. This time, it wasn't because of an emergency or a storm. It was because Noah had invited her to his school play without asking me first. Watching her sit in the front row, cheering louder than anyone, I understood what my heart had been trying to say all along. Love didn't erase the past, it honored it by continuing. We walked along the river afterward, the same river where I once taught Noah how to skip stones. The air was cool, the kind that sharpens memories. I told Hannah about the motel night, about how afraid I had been, about how grateful I was that she had been patient with my silence. She listened the way she always did, with her whole self, and I felt something loosen inside me. For the first time since Rebecca died, I didn't feel like I was choosing between love and loyalty. I felt like I was choosing life. The real challenge wasn't that night with one bed. It was the years of restraint that followed. It was learning to forgive myself for wanting happiness again. It was explaining to Noah that loving someone new didn't mean loving his mother less. When I finally did, he surprised me with the simplicity only children have. He said his mom would want us to be happy, and then asked if Hannah could come to his next game. Love didn't arrive with fireworks. It arrived quietly, in shared meals, in school pickups, in the way Hannah folded herself into our lives as if she had always belonged there. The memory of that motel room became something else entirely. Not a secret, not a shame, but a turning point. A night when two people chose respect over impulse, and in doing so, built something stronger than a moment. If this story is reaching your heart, if it reminds you of someone you've waited for or a second chance you're afraid to take, please pause for a moment and like this video, share it, and let us know in the comments. Your engagement tells us these stories matter. Before the ending, I want to ask you something special. Please comment the word "second chances matter" if you believe love can be patient and still be powerful. Years later, I sometimes think back to that storm in Montana, to the flickering lights, to the single bed that forced us to face ourselves. Life didn't change because we broke a rule that night. It changed because we didn't, because we chose trust over secrecy, hope over fear, and in that choice, we found a love that didn't need to hide, one that could stand in the open, honest and unafraid, ready to be known.